Thank you. My daughter asked me last night after I had finished all my comments what my talk had to do with technology, entertainment, or design. It was a very disarming question because my talk has nothing to do with any of those things, and that's what TED is supposed to be all about. So I had to kind of reframe either my talk or what I want you to sort of think about and how I want you to react to it. So what I'd like for you to do, and since TED is all about how we think about the world, see TED through my talk as thinking entirely differently. Thinking entirely differently about a subject that, frankly, we don't talk a lot about. If you ever want to kill a conversation at a dinner party or at a cocktail hour, talk about disability. When I was growing up as a kid, the conversation about disability was usually fairly short. It kind of focused on comments such as, don't stare, keep your distance, be nice, go give them a quarter. That's kind of the conversation about disability because it reflected our attitudes about disability. And today I want to challenge you to think differently. I want to throw out a couple of statements which might sound radical. Statements such as, all of us have a disability. Statements such as, there's no such thing as disability. Maybe none of us are disabled. One thing I think we probably ought to do kind of early on in this conversation is define what we mean by disability. And there are a lot of different definitions. Some dictionary definitions are pretty negative, as you might imagine. The dictionary at my house, I opened it up and it said, disability, lacking in power or ability. And I thought, well, hey, that's me, guilty. I'm disabled. There are a lot of things that I lack power and ability in. There's a really interesting definition of disability that you find in a lot of international literature and you find in the social sciences. And it defines disability not in the context of the individual's condition, but in the context of the environment in which he or she finds themselves. For example, if your environment is inconsistent with what you are physically or mentally able to do, then you are a person with a disability. In that situation, you would have a hearing disability because you couldn't hear what I was saying. If you go to a restaurant tonight and look at a menu, or if you go to church tomorrow and open your hymnal and those documents are in Braille, you will be the person with the disability because you are in an environment that's inconsistent with your particular condition. If I was speaking a foreign language, some of you may understand it. Others of you would be at an intellectual disability stage because of your lack of knowledge about that particular language. So it's fascinating to me and it's thought-provoking to me about this definition of disability that says whenever we are in an environment inconsistent with our own particular situation. Those dictionary definitions, when you look up disability, don't say a person in a wheelchair. They don't say a person who is visually impaired. They speak to that lacking in ability or in power. Part of the reason that I'm here today is one, to hope and sort of awaken your thinking along that theme of thinking about disability, but also in the role that I play here at the Lakeshore Foundation in this community, a place that I'm very honored to be at. And I want to tell you a little bit about Lakeshore's story. And I mainly want to talk about some of the types of people that in our community who are served through Lakeshore. Lakeshore's mission is really fairly simple, and that's through sport and fitness and recreation. We give people with disability, however you might want to define that, the opportunity to lead healthy, active, and independent lives. A lot of these images you'll see are from programs of the foundation. Now, sport and recreation, we all know is important. I would sort of suggest to you that for the people that we serve, it is the key to their active, independent, healthy lifestyle. There are many people around the world who benefit from the work of Lakeshore. We are, in fact, the largest provider of sport and recreation programs for people with disability in the country. We have some amazing partners that we do our work with that we couldn't do our work without, including organizations such as the United States Olympic Committee, the Southeastern Conference, the Wounded Warrior Project, UAB. We're embarking on a very significant effort to change the way the world thinks about disability through empirical research, and we're doing that in partnership with UAB. And we have a lot of other amazing partners who help us succeed in what we're doing. The kind of things that happen at Lakeshore are like this. Let's say there's a woman in the community with Parkinson's disease. Like a lot of older people, she's afraid of falling. She comes to Lakeshore, she takes a class because she wants to improve her balance. She wants to be able to walk to her mailbox every day to get her mail. She's scared to do that. She's scared to go out of the house. We'll put her in a program focused on strength and balance and conditioning. We'll prove to her through pre and post assessments that her balance is improved. And at the end of the day, she'll say, you know, maybe I can walk to the mailbox again. Say you're a teenage kid who happens to be a wheelchair user. You've got as much athletic drive and interest as all of your non-disabled peers in school who have buku opportunities through community and sports programs. But you, the teenage wheelchair user, you want to have that same experience. You can't get it through your school, but you can get it through Lakeshore. And using Lakeshore as a platform, you can then go on to compete in your community around the country and potentially around the world, if that's how far your athletic talents can take you. Let's say you're that injured soldier, Marine, sailor, airman, Coast Guardsman, injured in Iraq, Afghanistan, or any other conflict. You find yourself with having lost a limb, getting a spinal cord injury, visual impairment, a burn. You find yourself in a totally different state than you expected, and now you're just trying to figure out life. Chances are you're in your 20s. Physical activity is an incredibly important part of who you are. You also, though, find yourself needing some outlet for the adrenaline rush that you got so used to in service to country. Lakeshore Foundation has a program that's 5 years old now where we've served over 1,200 injured servicemen and women and their families to help them re-engage in life, reconnect to family, give them a springboard for going back to school and going back to work. Sport and recreation as a means to restoring the life that you either had or the best life that you can have. We do that at Lakeshore primarily through a very simple formula. And it's a formula of high expectations and opportunities. So many people, even that recently injured serviceman or woman, are coming to us out of an environment of very low expectations. You're hurt. I'll take care of you. Don't do that. You'll hurt yourself again. I mean, we see that time and time again. And what we do at Lakeshore is that we come in and say, okay, here's what you can do. First of all, don't assume you can't do anything you used to do, but maybe you need to do it differently. And then we'll provide that environment of high expectations, and we'll give them the opportunities to succeed. I just use the word differently. And, you know, it seems to me that perhaps that's really what disability is. It's really just another form of being different from everyone else. Who in this room is not different from everyone else in this room? We are all different from everyone else, and I would encourage us to think about disability as just another type of difference that we have. It's not less, it's different. Now I want to share something that I have heard enough times to where I think there's real truth in it, but it's something that, frankly, I don't know that I could ever say it if I were in the condition of some of the people that we serve. And to me, the first time I heard it, I just was really taken aback. But I hear, when you hear a person with the disability say, my life is better since my injury, My life is better since my accident. My life is better since my disability. You know, that, to this day, even though I've been in this world for many years, it still takes me aback. It makes me wonder, first of all, if I could ever have that same type of attitude. But it also makes me wonder if what we're seeing is this unleashing of the power of the human spirit that perhaps most of us take for granted. These folks have dealt with such adversity, and they've succeeded. They have tapped into a portion of the human spirit that we all have in us, and they have thrived in that situation. I would like to think that I could do the same. It's an amazing thing to feel. Of course, sometimes after that person who's dealing with that kind of adversity gets through it, they bump into society. Society says, don't stare, keep your distance, give them a quarter, rather than embracing them for what they've accomplished. I have a good friend who's named Carlos Leon. Carlos is a Marine. Carlos represented the U.S. at the Beijing Paralympic Games. Carlos is a wheelchair user. He posted a question a couple of weeks ago. Carlos said, I went to my local gym today, and this woman came up and told me how courageous I am for going to the gym by myself. And if you know Carlos, Carlos said, what should I say to her? And my message back to Carlos was, don't say the first thing that came into your mind. The woman was very well intended. You know, she wanted to compliment Carlos for being out on his own, but it's just a reflection of the typical disability conversation of somewhat keeping your distance. Back to the high expectation and opportunity. There's a gentleman who was the head of our youth program years ago who became this country's most accomplished Paralympic athlete, Randy Snow. Randy Snow had a great quote. Randy said, you know, if you tell a child over and over and over again that they can't do something, pretty soon they're going to start believing it. A lot of truth in that. And that's true in the classroom, it's true in the workplace, but it's particularly true for that child with some type of physically disabling condition. I really do feel like that unleashing of that human spirit that we see in a lot of people with disability is at play. It's quite an amazing force. And we are fortunate in this community to have a place that gives people the opportunity to do that. At Lakeshore, the last 3 people that we've recruited have come from Chicago, Houston, and Los Angeles. And I say that only to tell you that, to illustrate something that, frankly, within our walls, we don't always recognize it the way we should. It's truly a special place in this country. And there are cities all across this country and beyond who would love to have a place like we have in our community, so their citizens can get the kind of services that our citizens can. So we feel like we're not only a point of pride for this community and this state, but primarily we're a place that is going to allow those individuals who need our services to be the absolute best that they can.